Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adrian Conglington, and I'm a health enthusiast. I'm interested in all things health. I have a health coaching certification. I've studied it for years. I've studied my own health conditions as well as friends and family. And I believe that health is one of the most important things that we could focus on. And I wanted to introduce a guest who is going to talk about grief, which is a big part of our lives as human beings. Yves Dormont is a licensed social worker and he has vast experience, and I'll let him continue.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, wherever you're at. My name is Yves Dumont. I came to the field of social work due to an event that happened. My mother, a few years ago, I think about 17 years ago, was diagnosed with stomach cancer. And as a result of taking care of her, uh, I at the time I moved back from San Diego to Jersey, and she was being seen by a doctor at Memorial Sloan Kettering in New York. So after a year taking care of her, unfortunately, she transitioned, she passed away. So I reflect and I said to myself, prior to that, I used to do IT work. I used to work for Intuit, makers of TurboTax, GE, and then I worked for Apple. And then while I was working at Apple, reflect, I said, what can I do different? Something that is more impactful besides devices. So talked to an older gentleman that while we were at Apple, and then he says, "Oh, based on your personality, the way you have a good active listening and position yourself with people," he says social work. And then at first, I was kind of not too sure that's the right, type profession to dive in. And I attended a seminar at Rutgers in New Brunswick, and then after the seminar, I talked to the presenter, and she said that was a good idea. And then I followed through. I submitted my application and I got accepted. So I did the program. Um, During the program, I learned a lot about aging, about processing feelings, about diagnosis, about human behavior dynamic, and also, it's like how to deal with a lot of uh, circumstances in life that, usually if you're not in that mental frame, that you will neglect or probably don't know how to, it's like tackle.
And before we get too deep into it, our other lovely co-host, Lori. You can say a few words, Lori.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. And like you said, could be morning somewhere else. I'd like to just say thank you for joining us this evening. We've been in this constant conversation about empowered healing. The body knows how to do it, but we tend to do everything that we can to stop that. And so I have been studying the art and science of health. It's been very interesting to me. Most recently, I did a course in functional nutrition, and I aspire to work in that realm of helping others to make the best choices to have the best life because we don't live forever, but we believe that you can have a good quality of life and share that with other people. So thank you so much for being here.
Yes, that's awesome. Last week, me and Lori were talking about grief and losing family members and loved ones, and grief is such a huge topic. It's really right up there with our health because we suffer lots of losses. We could lose a job, we could lose our house, we could lose money, we could lose relationships, but we're not really in general taught how to handle it. It's a part of our life, and but we're not taught how to handle it. So in dealing with grief, especially parental grief, that's pretty much the most intense grief a human being can suffer. What did you learn from that process, Eve?
I learned from that process that, especially for men, uh, it's taboo. People are not comfortable. For instance, when you look at even in the business world, they only give you 3 days to really put something together. And really, 3 days is not enough to even, you know, put your things in, or, in order. When you look at, it's like logistically, you gotta contact family members, you gotta funeral home, you gotta do cemetery. So all of that, it takes a lot more than that. So I learned from that grief is a process, and also, there's this concept also that big boy don't cry, so, it's unfortunate that this is a topic that, men, especially, it's like there's no safe space for them to express themselves, because, when you grow up, it's like people tell you, big, boys don't cry, all these different, uh, taboo that they created. So it's very difficult unless you really, came from a family that your parents taught you that it's okay to go to counseling. That's also something very taboo, that when it comes to men to go to counseling. It's actually a luxury nowadays, because you need to have insurance, otherwise it can be quite expensive.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting that you say that about being taught big boys don't cry. It's almost like we live in a culture where crying, period. We feel embarrassed when we cry. We feel, especially at work. Work is very intense, and sometimes our emotions just take over and we might have to cry. We might have to run to the bathroom because it's a taboo to cry in certain places for females even. So when you combine the pressures to be stoic and strong
Yes.
all the time with these cultural taboos, no wonder we're having difficulties managing our grief.
And also, there's also shame that associate with it as well, because that's an emotion that, you know, people think that if you put express shame, that's defective, that's unacceptable, and then they feel fundamentally that you're damaged, as a result. So, when you experience grief, you experience sadness, anger, hopeless, and powerlessness. While normal and necessary, but often triggers experience shame in men who are grieving. Shame can have a lifelong impact on an individual, leading to symptoms of depression and anxiety. And then also, there's, according to research, Kubler-Ross came up with, it's like this, acronym called DABDA, which is denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. So, those, feelings are not linear. It goes up and down, and, depending on what you're experiencing, it can be, for instance, you, are listening to music, and then that brought ideas of, it's like your feelings with that person you lost, can be a parent, or brother, or sister. So it can be, cooking, or, depending on where you are at. And also, what people fail to understand, depending on the level of relationship you have with that person, that's the that's how deep the pain is when it comes to grief.
Yes, wow. I'm glad you mentioned how the jobs they don't really even honor or respect it, because if I broke my leg, I might get 2 weeks off from work. I
Yes.
just hurt my leg. They're going to give me more time off from work than if I'm grieving a loss. And so if I'm grieving the loss, if I broke my leg or I have my arm in a cast, everybody can see that my arm was hurt, and they're going to say, "Oh, we're going to give you light duty." But when you're grieving, you're expected to just function like nothing happened. And
Because it's mental.
it causes so many issues. It's so complicated how our society doesn't cut us any slack when we're grieving. And so,
I had a recent experience like within the last couple of weeks, that my ex-husband passed away, and my daughter and my son, their grieving was clearly different. My son, a little more, very sad and upset and everything, but almost like stoic. Whereas my daughter's like just bleeding heart, like really, really hurting a lot because she was very close to him. And yesterday, when I was at an event here with work, one of the people in HR, she said that her colleague had asked her how to utilize the time that I needed to take off. I only took off like a couple of days, but she said that she had to ask, is it appropriate that that an ex-husband is considered a family member? And she said, and then 2 days later, and she told her, she said, oh, absolutely, absolutely, especially when you have kids involved. But she said 2 days later, the same thing happened with her, where her dad
Wow.
passed
Wow.
away and she had to comfort her three children. So it's like layers and layers and layers. It's like that's why it's not linear, because you just
Mhm.
never know how it will manifest again in that song, in that like it's one thing, but one of his name is in my email address. So it's very subtle. It's very, I hadn't even thought about it in so long, but then now that this loss has happened, it's made me really reflect on the quality of that relationship, where it went wrong, and what I need to do moving forward in terms of living my life and being an example for my kids. So so yeah, it's most of the time I'm fine, but then every little while it just really
Yeah.
hits me. It's like, wow, this really, really happened. And
Well, I
Yeah.
want to say sorry for your loss, and also uh understand that feelings, the grief is like the weather. It's like it's something that you cannot control. When you least expect it, it sneak up on you.
Yes, it does. My son, my grown son lives with his father, and he's a happy-go-lucky. He's 32, but he's not, his emotions have always been cheerful, almost like nothing bothers him. And recently, there was a conflict, and he just, all of this emotion just came up. It was kind of shocking. And it's amazing how our bodies, if we keep stuffing that emotion down,
Mhm.
your body will just make it come out, and it doesn't care where you're at. You could be at work, you could be in front of people. If you
Mhm.
suppress it too much, our body will just make it come out. So it's something how that's a part of us that needs to be expressed, but learning how to deal with it and teaching other people, because some people don't know what to say when there's
Yes.
a death is so uncomfortable. We just don't even want to talk about it. And they'll say, put their foot in their mouth and say, oh, they're in a better place. Like we don't, they'll say, and they don't really know. And they didn't really mean to be insensitive, but it comes off like that. And it just causes more problems. And it's just a big ball of wax. That's why we need you, Eve, to help us.
Thank you. Well, giving my study, in research and also the experience, for instance, I study abroad, for instance, in Beijing and China, right? And Tianjin. You should see how the culture, the Asian culture, it's like embrace elderly, and how it's like, for instance, Caribbean culture does the same thing too. They embrace elder, and also some of the African culture, some places also in the black cultures too, and also Hispanic. It depends on family, but the thing is, it's like you can embrace the elderly, but it's to talk about grief, it's to talk about death. That's what we need to be more aware and normalize it. And what people fail to understand, if you do not prepare, for instance, your advance directive, your will, your your documents, then you create more chaos for the people leaving behind, because then there's gonna be more fighting, there's gonna be more problems. So as a parent, or as anyone that you have loved one, whatever you have may not be much. For instance, if you have a car, if you have a paintings, if you have it's like a favorite, it's like laptop or anything that you want to give to someone else, put it in writing. And we tend to not to talk about this kind of stuff at all when we have family gathering, because it's not sexy, it's not fun, it's not. So we tend to shine away from that, and I think that's a disservice for the people leaving behind.
Yeah, I guess we're acting like ostriches. We just, if I stick my head in the sand, then it's not going to happen. It's not, but I think that advanced directive that you just said, like, I wouldn't want to be, when you're in that situation and you're unconscious, you have no control.
Right.
But my opinion is that if I can't breathe on my own
You
and
should give
circulate on my own,
directions.
right,
Yes.
I don't want machines
To keep
because
you alive.
that's not a quality of life. When we talk about quality of life is I can talk to you, I can
Yes.
communicate with you. I'm not in pain. That's quality of life. So if I have no functioning and I'm just held by a machine, that's no quality of life. So it is important to do those advanced directives, and they also have this thing on another topic called Swedish death cleaning. And they're saying by the time
Mhm.
you're 75, they're saying really 65 and up, we should start doing what you just said,
Mhm.
dealing with our items, letting go, giving stuff to people right now when I can give them something. I can give them money, I can give them a gift, and just actually hand it to them instead of it being done after I'm gone. So it's a big topic. It's
Yeah.
definitely huge.
And also one of the definition of grief, according to unknown authors, is grief is the protest of the mind, the body, and spirit. What are we protesting against is the loss of someone or something that had meaning to us.
Mm,
So, that's something we need to, and then, society is stated, some of those things. It's like you need to get over it. We all grieve in our own way. No right or wrong way to grieve, emotional, intellectual. Talk to tell our story, whoever that is willing to listen. Grief at work, boundaries, dealing with difficult people. So these are different grief and things that people need to say, you
right,
know. And the thing is with the different uh also if you do not address your grief after sometimes more than a year, it becomes complicated grief. And that's something that a lot of people not even aware don't even talk about because that the loss become of that loved one become unmanageable. You constantly yearn for that disease or experience guilt about the idea of moving on and accepting the loss. Especially if you didn't resolve the person die or the person pass away, it's like you never got a chance to even say anything. So now you have to send letters to yourself or, it's like really did some deep work in therapy or meditation to tap into those laws. And because that almost becomes unfinished business because that person now cannot respond to you.
right. It's like grief work. Like
Yes.
it's work. There's so much that we have to,
Mm.
there's so much work to do. So even grief work and making peace with the relationship that you had with
Yes.
that person. It could have been a great relationship, or it could have been an awful relationship. And that makes me think about forgiveness. And
Yes.
which is also a part of the grieving process because when I forgive, I release myself from the obsession
The
that person,
attachment.
yeah,
Yes.
this person is taking up space in my head. And if I can make peace with the fact that, none of us is perfect, we're all trying to do the best that we can and somehow find a way to forgive them. And when I think about what Jesus taught and how he really taught a high level of love, a level that's almost unimaginable. And he said, forgive them, they know not what they do, even when they were sticking a stake in his arm. So,
Yes.
that's a high level of help. I have to have noise in the
Well
back.
said.
That was one of the things that was important to me, to let my, to let my ex-husband know that whatever, that we had a wonderful life together and that, the things that, were not good, that he was forgiven, that, that he's surrounded with love and not to be afraid. And that was really important for me because I was so angry with him all those years. It's like, oh, he's sick. Okay. Oh, well. And then when it really hit me that he's not going to be here anymore for my two youngest kids, it really, it stirred something up in me. And it was real important. I knew that our time was running out and I just wanted for him to know that we're okay and that he doesn't have to feel that he was not forgiven. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's commendable, the fact you did that. You release him, also you make him at peace as well. And it's peace also for you.
Yeah, because you can stay mad forever, but guess
You
what?
ma-
You're gonna be the one manifesting it. You're gonna be the
Correct.
one
Exactly.
making all
Hmm.
those mean chemicals in your body. One very interesting thing, talk about physical, is like the last couple of, like ever since that happened, I've been experiencing a lot of inflammation. And so I
Mm.
have to really consciously do everything I can to fight that inflammation because I can see that I went through something. It's like kind of almost like an exorcism. But it's like and now I'm exhausted from it. But yeah, it's a process as well. Taking better care of myself, taking my vitamins, drinking my water, everything that I know to do to fight the inflammation. But that I kind of took on a lot in going through that and just taking care of my kids. But I feel at peace. I think that they're okay. They're going to be okay. They're like, Mom, are you okay? Like they're checking on me now, you know, because of what they just went through. But I'm just trying to
Beautiful.
create value from that experience because I know
Yes.
that that's what he would have wanted.
That's beautiful. Well said. Also, one of the technique that I learned in grief practice is process the loss. So, you can do a column, if only in the reality. For instance, I'll give you an example. When my mom, before I moved back to Jersey from San Diego, I used to say, if only I moved sooner, then maybe I could have taken my mom to the doctor and then it could have been prevented. But the reality is, uh, my mom is very, it's like have a lot of self-determination. She's a woman who would like to, make her own call. So therefore, she wants to go to the doctor when she wants to go to the doctor. So, that's also deal with the bargaining stage. So if only the reality is, things are the way they are because that's how they meant to happen. So a lot of times, we trying to go back to see if we can change the reality of what took place. So that's something that we need to be careful as well as the process. So I would recommend people to do that. A column of if onlys and the other one is reality.
That's good advice. It's like when we're not accepting reality, we're in denial.
Yeah.
Like this thing happened, and it's gonna happen to us. It's a part of the cycle of life. Birth and death is all a cycle. And in this culture, it teaches it's the when people died in the past, the family handled it. They washed the body, people came to the
Yes.
house. It was not a business, a money-making
Yes, it
business.
was a community, it was a family
Yes.
affair.
And that gave us more of real experience with it as opposed to the way it's removed and you put them in a hospital morgue and you take them away and it's become a money-making business. I mean, this culture that we're living in, the women used to have babies at home and the Indians used to dig a hole in the ground and squat over the ground and push the baby out and now we lay on our backs. And there's so many things in this culture that we're brainwashed and pushed on us that don't help us. It helps big business.
Yeah.
And
It,
go ahead. What were you gonna say?
no, no, I was gonna say, well said. Also, for instance, you see the pen, right, that we have. Let's say this is when we were born, and this is nobody knows when we're gonna die, right? So if you don't know when you're gonna die, so from the time you start living, if you learn to make peace and have good relationship with other people, then you become feel less guilty and less friction with others. So therefore, when you get to an age or at any time when you don't know when the creator will call you, then you be more at peace, and then other people around you will be more at peace because they know that you try your best. It's not perfection, it's trying to live your life to the best possibility ways that you can.
That makes a lot of sense. A lot of times when people, a parent could be aging or ailing,
Mhm.
and one sibling will be taking care of the parent, and the
Mhm.
others are just letting that sibling, they're
Mhm.
not helping. They're letting that one sibling deal with it. And then when the parent leaves, the sibling that did the work, they're at peace. They were there
Mhm.
with them, they loved them, and they had peace. But the ones that didn't, the guilt, they knew that they didn't have peace with that person, and that guilt beats them up.
Mhm.
So that kind of fits in with that example that you just said. When you do the best you
Mhm.
can along the way and you treat people right and you apologize if something happens, you're not always right, and you just try to be a good human being, you're gonna, face it a little bit better. Because I think some people, like there's some people in homes that are very angry and bitter and mad, and I think that one of the reasons why they're mad is that they're getting ready to leave, but they never lived, and they're mad. They
Yes.
didn't really live, and now they're just angry that my life is pretty much done and I never lived it. So, living in the present moment is a big part of being able to accept the things that we can't change, which is losing people and places and things.
Yeah. And also it's about, growth mindset or fixed mindset. One of the book that I love also as well, they talk about don't believe everything you think. And with your thinking is the beginning and the end of suffering. So which is very
Mm,
important because a lot of times we may have a thought process, something came into mind. But that doesn't mean because of that you have to execute. You have to analyze, you know, is the choice I'm going to be making impacting not only me but other people around me. So therefore, you're not only thinking about you, you're thinking about people around you because you're not an island because we're part of the community, like it or not. Because somebody
right.
else checking on you. Because anywhere you go, for instance, at the hospital, they ask you who's the next of kin, or who's your emergency contact. So a
Yes.
lot of times we don't think about that.
Mhm.
And they even have that on our phones now. They have
Yes.
a contact, emergency contact on your phone so that if something happens, that person can access your phone and get information that, all of your secrets, they're going to have access to them on your phone. So that's important for us to really think about, it's like uncomfortable. We don't want to think about it, but when you do think about it and deal with those things, it actually gives you peace of mind. You know,
Yes.
a lot of unfinished things creates anxiety. It creates depression because you have all this unfinished, an avalanche of unfinished things. And I think that's what creates this mental health conditions that are so rampant these days. And
But also, it's a culture piece because in the past, people had more of a community. Now we've been taught you don't need no one, so you need to be by yourself. I mean, think about it. We have more stuff, and yet we are more depressed. We have more anxiety, especially after COVID and during COVID. So, how do you live in a society? You have more stuff, more car, more access to so many things. Credit card, you can order something on Amazon within 48 hours or less than a day, it comes to you, but yet you have no friends, yet you have no one to talk to. Now you have robots, now you have AI. So we need to be more conscious on the choice we make, how we treat each other, and how valuable it is the human being cannot be replaced, in my opinion.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I like to do stuff that might be somebody might consider it strange or whatever. I look at those near death experience things on YouTube. I look at
Mhm.
those. I don't know if that stuff is true or not, but I look at that. And then I was looking at recently there was a monk, his name was Rinpoche, and he says every day they teach the monks to meditate that this could be your last day. And
Yeah.
that's part of their practice that today could be your last day. And he said that he says you meditate on it and then you imagine yourself in the casket and the people coming to your funeral and then you
Mhm.
can't talk to them. And he gets deep into it. But I think that that meditation about the fact that this could be our last day, because I think when we deny our death, that, oh, I could do this later. I could do that later. I could take care of my health later. Everything's later. We're being delusional. We're acting as if we have forever and we don't. So you don't want to be neurotic about it, but we do have to acknowledge that it's the cycle of life. And it's,
Yes.
some of us are closer to the last quarter of the game, and just acknowledging the gift of life.
Yes.
I'm in a swimming class, and at the end of the class, we do this aerobics class, and then they have this song. It's great. It's a great day to be alive. Just the gift of life.
Beautiful.
It's a beautiful thing. So acknowledging our finite existence makes us more grateful for the friends, the relationships, our children, and whatever good relationships we have, we appreciate them because it doesn't have to be that way.
Right. Well said. I mean, excellent example. Also, I remember doing grad school. One of the exercises we talked and we did also about writing your eulogy. What would people say about you? I mean, it's interesting for you to write about yourself and also to be as honest as you can be, give you perspective on how do I move in this world? How do I interact with the people? I thought that was very powerful.
It really makes you think when you
Yeah.
and I know people that are really doing a lot for their communities. They're doing a lot of community service. They're helping others and whatnot. And I got work to do in that area. I got work to do in that area, but it's just interesting how we live our lives in the stance that we take with
Mhm.
ourselves and with other people. It's very interesting.
Me, I work with the adults, in the community, the veterans, and I learn a lot from them because I realize, based on some of them, the choice they made, how things turn out to be, and also some of them are pretty decent, and also some of them, it's like struggle a lot as a result. So there's a book also I'm gonna show you guys that I just got. Hold on a second. It's called The Decision Book,
Hmm.
15 Models for Strategic Thinking. I really like this book because what happened is, see, it gives you a different example. Every model, there's an example in it. Every model, there's a graph that gives you the different example on the decision that you made.
Hmm.
Mhm.
It's a really, it's international, it's written in so many different languages.
Hmm.
It's called it a handy primer for anyone keen to tackle problems in a different way. So, it's like sometimes we think our problems are unique, and because of that, we don't know that other people have for centuries faced similar or even worse problems. So therefore, it's about really also being vulnerable to talk about how the choice we make and it's like decision we make can impact us and other people. And also, it's like, for instance, losing a job or aging, or that's part of grief as well, besides death.
Mm.
Your beauty, your youth, so.
Did you have to mention that, huh? Did you really? I remember this author, Brene Brown. She was
Mhm.
talking about being vulnerable. And she said she did a podcast on, I think it was a TED Talk. I'm not sure if it was YouTube or whatever it was.
Mhm.
And her husband and her girlfriend said, "Don't read the comments." And of course, she read the comments, and they said, "You old bag, you should get a facelift. You're
Mm.
ugly." And all of these trolls just said terrible things to her. And she said, it's sometimes we're afraid to get on the internet or whatever because of
Mhm.
what people think. But she said, we can't let those people stop us from living our purpose. They're not caring what people think because people are going to think what they think anyway. But she said,
Right.
I can't let my fear of those people stop me from putting all of my good out into the world. And she says that's the price that we pay when we expose ourselves to the world, because the world, as we know, has everything in it: good, the bad, the ugly, the
Mhm.
positive, the negative. So being vulnerable in a space like this exposes you. And so you're going to get those types of people taking shots at you, but we don't care about those people. We're just there trying to heal, trying to help people, help ourselves, and help our communities to face this ever-changing world that seems to be squeezing the population in ways that are unkind in many ways. So
Yeah.
it's really definitely very challenging.
Yes. And also, for instance, the Japanese have a concept. For instance, if there's a clay, they're making a pottery, and then it broke, doesn't turn out to be perfect. So they say that the broken part, all these things, the disformation, that's part of the perfection, because it happened to be that way and there's a purpose for it. And then sometimes you just gotta accept it and then put it together the way it is instead of trying to make it perfect. So if we have that kind of approach, it's also the same concept also as ikigai, which is a Japanese word of, it's like ikigai is, why do you get up every day? Why do you do what you do? If someone was not paying you, would you do this? Just like we're talking right now, would you do this? So therefore, ikigai is a concept also talks about what do you contribute to society besides your profession? What are your devotions in life?
Right.
So
Absolutely.
Mm,
I
that's
happen to know a few Japanese phrases, and one of my favorites is Hendoku Iyaku, which means
mhm.
to change poison into medicine. And a
Mm,
lot of the things that
nice.
we're dealing with on a daily basis, whether it's the air, the food, the drinks, the everything that we are exposed to, we're like a filter. We're changing, transforming whatever that is into value. And so, in terms of longevity, I think that it is important that we have great books like you just shared with us on how to manage this, because
Mhm.
this is beautiful, but it
Yes, the man.
needs to be managed.
Yes,
So
yes.
places that we don't want to go.
Correct.
And so, being able to access like strategies or access ways of transforming, hey, you throw me garbage, okay, I'm going to turn that into something valuable,
Yeah.
because if we don't, we're going to be just kind of just get dumped on with all of the negativity. I think one of the things about longevity that's real important is that we can get good rest. It's hard to
Yes.
get good rest if you're worried all the time. If you're
Correct.
trying to figure stuff out, and we have to have faith. We really need to believe
Yes.
in ourselves. We need to believe in that there's something greater that's like running things and that we can tap into that.
that makes
Yes.
sense.
To surrender. Yes, to surrender to whatever faith that you have.
Mm. You,
Because also,
go ahead.
because one thing I've learned also in group in therapy also that I've taught in the past, for instance, gratitude and anxiety or depression cannot occupy the same space. If you're grateful, you cannot be depressed. If you're grateful, you cannot be anxious because the gratitude is bigger than what you worry about.
Right.
I
So,
like that.
reading and exposing ourselves to new information is going to help us because we're going to
Yes.
have new ideas. Like the books you mentioned and the things Lori mentioned about Ikigai, I mean, the Japanese principles. We being open to try new things, like
Mhm.
the Bible mentions wearing life like a loose garment. I'll try it on. Let me try this on. Let me see if it's going to work. I think about the nursery rhyme, Humpty Dumpty. And they said Humpty Dumpty had a great fall, and all of us have fallen and gotten hurt. And since he was an egg, he was broken, and all the
Mhm.
king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put them back together again. And when we get broken, it's not gonna get fixed, and we have to live with it, like that cracked jar or
Mhm.
that cracked vase. They
Mhm.
would paint it blue. They would make it part. I think I've seen some of those Japanese plates. They're like
Mhm.
white plates, and they have all of these lines in them,
Yes,
and they
correct.
just accept that crack. And it becomes part of the tapestry. So when we
Yes.
accept that, we all going to take hits from this life and from people and our culture and the media. And we just take those hits and we just put it as part of the tapestry of our lives. And it allows us to accept ourselves. And then we can accept other people's imperfections because I've made mistakes. I put my foot in my mouth. I've made a lot of mistakes. And then when other people make them, because I've made them, I'm a mistake maker and I'm a mistake breaker. I can let stuff go because when I made a mistake, I didn't want them to crucify me forever. I wanted them to, cut me some slack. So I have to practice cutting myself some slack and also doing that with other people. I remember I went to an event and I forgot my phone and I beat myself up so bad because I forgot my phone and I caught myself. I'm like, why am I doing this? So my consciousness of what I was doing, I became aware of it. And I remember reading a meditation book, and one of the things they said in the book is, I think, but I'm not my thoughts. So there's a little space there if I'm practicing meditation, that if I get this thought, I don't have to act on it. But if a person's not working on themselves and Johnny pisses them off, they're like, I'm gonna knock the crap out of Johnny. Instead of thinking, I have that thought, but I'm not gonna act on it. So we do have some responsibility to work on ourselves if we want to heal, and we have to put some effort. We don't have to, but I choose to put some effort into healing and taking care of my health, like Lori mentioned earlier, and getting my water and my rest. That rest is really powerful
Yes.
because it heals your whole body and mind gets a break when you get adequate rest. And
Yes.
what I've noticed lately is I have a bad habit of drinking a lot of coffee. So lately I've been cutting back on the coffee, and as I drink less caffeine, my sleep is
Has
much
improved.
deeper, and I'm
Mm.
starting to remember my dreams when I wake up. So that
That's
coffee
beautiful.
is interfering with my rest. So
Yes.
that's something that I'm working on. So it's,
Yes. And also, working with elderly, also with veterans, I've learned also the value of empathy. A lot of time we don't have enough empathy for others, even empathy for ourselves. We're
Mm,
so
mm,
hard on other people.
uh,
We're so hard on ourselves. We
absolutely.
don't give each other grace.
Right. Nobody can beat you up better than you.
That is so true.
And by the same
Exactly.
token, nobody can be kinder to you than to yourself, like we
Mhm.
have to love ourselves, and that becomes the magnet of other people doing the same. It's like we can't expect people to just like be at our beck and call, but we're mean to ourselves. We're entertaining these bad thoughts or whatever. So
Right.
so yeah, it starts like from the cells.
Yes.
I mean, the cellular
Yeah.
brain or whatever, it needs to start from us, and
Yeah.
and it just radiates out.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
I think this was a great conversation that we had about health and grieving and life in general. I think it was pretty awesome.
Thank you for inviting me. I feel honored and to discuss that because this is what we need in our community. This is what we need to the world to see because I understand it's not a sexy topic. It's not a topic that's fun, but it is necessary. And also, the more we talk about it, we become more comfortable. Then we can have more compassion and love for the people when they get sick or when they transition or when you're aging or when anything that happen, we can learn to embrace it better.
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you so much, Miss Adrian, for inviting me because you rock. You're a good friend and I know you for years and thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate that.
And thank you for that ego food saying I rock. That just gave me a boost, We can never get enough ego food. And my lovely Lori, who is,
Yes,
wants to, we're growing our reach by continuing to talk about these everyday topics that affects
yes,
everybody. What we're talking about affects everybody. Children, teenagers, adults, we're
yes.
all affected by grief, loss, life, and love. And we're just going to continue to do the best we can to try to be a benefit to ourselves and others.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Miss Laurie, as well.
I really enjoyed talking with you.
Likewise.
See you next time.
Thank you. All right.